Welcome back to Open Line. It's Oscars night here on Open Line. Kind of a different topic than what we usually delve into, but certainly just as interesting. Tonight we have a film critic to break down all the nominees and what movies we should be going and seeing. And a lot of them we don't even have to go and see. We can see them on streaming services. But Jason Shawhan is our guest tonight. Jason, we were just going through actors in a leading role, and we got through Javier, Benedict, and Andrew. But the next one on the list is Will Smith in King Richard. Full disclosure, this is the only one in this list that I have not seen. I've not seen King Richard yet. But that is about the tennis players' fathers, correct?
Yes. It's about the Richard Williams, the father of Venus and Serena Williams, and Will Smith is very good in this. There were some rumblings that, like, you know, is this film endorsing the idea of like running your kids ragged to make them sports stars? And that's honestly, for people with more of a background in sports and in children's education, than for me to call out. It's just, he's really good in it. Ingenue Ellis, who plays the girl's mother, is also very good in it as well. But it's it's an intense kind of film. It's you know, inspired by a true story, which usually is just sort of like, you know, the kind of thing that creates warning signs. But in this instance, I mean, the Venus and Serena Williams are producers on this film. Like, they were there, you know, that making sure that this was telling the story that they wanted told about their father. And I think if nothing else, it'll be fascinating to see what kind of a legacy this film has. Like, I always look that the utmost legacy that an inspirational sports drama can have is if it's the thing they show a PE class on a day when it rains and they can't go outside. That's how I grown to love 1986's Hoosiers with Dennis Hopper. Because that was the movie they would show whenever it rained and we couldn't go outside for PE. So I'm thinking, you know, we might see that with King Richard. It might have that kind of an afterlife once it's out of theaters, although it is currently on HBO Max. It's part of one of the Warner Brothers titles that they've been showing all year.
Absolutely. And then to round out the category, Denzel Washington in The Tragedy of Macbeth. That's an interesting one. And in fact, I've seen it. I actually liked it a lot more than I thought I would, because on paper you're thinking, oh, this is Shakespeare and Old English. How much of this am I going to really follow? But, you know, Denzel was so good in that. You really could obviously follow the plot line, but that's such an interesting film in and of itself.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, like, anytime you get an interesting Shakespeare adaptation is always great. It's like, it's one of the, it's both whether on stage or on screen, you know, anytime somebody's just like, we're going to do something with Shakespeare. It's like, there's a reason wwhy those plays are like some of the formative texts of Western literature. And in this instance, it's great. Denzel is incredible in this. I mean, he brings a sort of lived-in quality to Macbeth that you don't often get. It's usually very keyed into absolutes, and there's some gray area to this, and that's not just because it's in black and white, but it's the look of the film is incredible. It's a Academy ratio, very like hermetically sealed, avant-garde design. The three witches, all played by the same actress, doing a little tribute to Madonna's Frozen video. I love all of that, but like, I mean, it all rests with Denzel. And Frances McDormand, who was not nominated, but he's so good in this. I mean, like, it goes without saying, Denzel is good in a film. Well, yeah, and Water's Wet, but he's really good in this. And just it's such a pleasure to hear his voice speak these lines. I mean, like, you know, I'm like flashing back, thinking like, I hope Nancy Grimes, my 10th grade British literature teacher, I hope she's seen this film, because this is absolutely the kind of thing that we would have discussed in class. Like, you know, what it does with the text, what changes, how they visually represent certain things of it. I mean, that's the key to Shakespeare, is that it's this constantly evolving text that we can do so much with, you know, just depending on what you feel like doing. And in this instance, it's like a chance for Denzel to like take on one of the major characters in English language literature, and I dig it.
To your point, I could see my 9th grade English teacher, Diane Toombs, playing that in her class too. Speaking to your metric of could this be shown, you know, on the screen in grade school to help teach the subject, and I think it definitely could as well. So, of that list, Jason, who's the favorite, or who do you think will win?
Um, I I don't know who will win because there's way too many interesting wild cards in there. But like, if I have to go with the one that like, I got to go with Benedict Cumberbatch because like I went into that film just like he's kind of played out. He's sort of been working the Doctor Strange adjacent thing and all these things, and then like he makes you hate him and then pity him in such a fascinating way in that film. And it's, I would be happy with any of those performances. Honestly, they're five great male performances, but I got to go with Benedict Cumberbatch just because that's the kind of work that, like, I don't know, it seems like a pivot to like something like whatever he does next is going to be like even more out there and challenging the sort of what the pathway that he's been put into by Hollywood, I guess.
No doubt that his character has a lot of depth to work with in that film, and he does a great job, like you mentioned. Let's go on to actor in a supporting role. If you can see, I think we've worked it out where you can actually see the screen. My own ignorance is going to play in here. I do not know how to pronounce the first nominee there in Belfast. Do you mind taking that one?
Ciarán Hinds.
Okay. So I have not seen this one. Tell us about Belfast.
Belfast, it's sort of a loosely autobiographical thing that Kenneth Branagh, who is also in theaters right now, starring in and having directed Death on the Nile. It's just sort of a tribute to like his family and the people that he grew up around during his time during the Troubles in Ireland. And I mean, Ciarán Hinds, he's one of those actors who, like, even if you don't know the name or who he is, when you see his face, you're just like, oh yeah, that guy. He's popped up in so many things, and he's got that sort of that character actor ability to just like to sneak into your subconscious because like, oh, he didn't expect this, and it's great. I mean, like he's very good in it.
Absolutely. I want to jump in because we've got our first call-in question. Clayton joins us now on Open Line. Go ahead, Clayton.
I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on this year's Oscars.
I think it's going to be interesting. I mean, like on the whole, there's some interesting choices. There's like, I mean, the fact that Drive My Car has 4 Oscar nominations is historic, and that just makes me incredibly happy. But it's every year the Oscars. There's things that I'm just like, well, that was a good choice, and there's things I'm just like, oh, come on, really? And it's hard to say. Like usually the narrative for the Oscars is written after they hand them out. That's when you can find the theme. The dramatic through line that goes through all of them. But yeah, as far as this year specifically, I think the big story is the success of Drive My Car, because for a 3-hour Japanese film to get that kind of mainstream awareness is like, for critics guilds are one thing, but I mean like the AMPAS, the American Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, for them to like reach out, I think Parasite winning a couple years ago was a very, very major event that sort of like shook things up and just like, oh, hey, we can look beyond the usual paradigms of this. And I'm ecstatic because Drive My Car is a really good film. But yeah, I mean, like as far as like general feelings about the Oscars, I mean, that the outfits are always interesting. I'm going to be interested in how they stage it this year because like last year, They made it very minimal and very sort of avant-garde. Steven Soderbergh, bless his heart. Anything that starts out with an extended tracking shot like that is always I'm gonna be okay with that, as messy as that broadcast was. But like honestly, this year, who knows? I mean, they just announced that Amy Schumer, Wanda Sykes, and Regina Hall, or is it Regina King? I can't remember if it was Regina Hall.
I think it's Regina Hall, I think.
Yeah,
but you may be right,
but
yeah.
The 3 of them are going to be sort of the alternating hosts, and that's kind of interesting. I'm interested in that. I also adore Wanda Sykes, so I will follow wherever she leads.
Absolutely. If we go back to the actor in a supporting role graphic, we see some familiar films that we have seen on there before that we've already talked about. Power of the Dog getting 2 nominations in this category, and then J.K. Simmons with being the Ricardos. They all have excellent roles. But we haven't talked about Coda, the film Coda yet. What is that about?
Coda is it stands for Child of Deaf Adult. And it's about a young girl who wants to be a singer, who has grown up around her parents are deaf, and it's sort of how that creates its own sort of like issues that, you know, it's a different sort of. I haven't seen this film, but I mean, you know, like I pay attention to the discussions on it, and it's one that I'm going to catch up with before I have to like, you know, send in my. Every night, everybody has an Oscar party. You have to fill out your own ballot to, you know, for a what's the word? Not tontine, but for a bet. You know, you just like you throw in $1 and see who wins. But yeah, no, it's I've heard amazing things. Marlee Matlin, who won Best Actress Oscar for Children of a Lesser God back in the '80s. I mean, she's in this, and you know, she would not work in a production that was like not being completely honest about the issues faced by the hearing impaired community. And you know, it's a heck of a crowd pleaser, because like both my mom and a bunch of friends of like all sorts of different backgrounds were all just like, no, you should check it out. And it was, you know, it was always one of those meant to, but I will. But yeah, it deals with the specifics faced by hearing people growing up around the hearing impaired.
Also in that category, as we mentioned before, 2 nominees from the same film nominated in the same category. Always interesting when that happens. Do you think there's one over the other that has the edge?
I think Cody Schmidt Mcphee, he's very good. I mean, like, he's been making a major impression ever since he was in that adaptation of Cormac McCarthy's The Road. He's great in this. I mean, like, he gets the fun parts of it, and I think he's more likely to take it over Jesse Plemons. But here's the thing about Jesse Plemons. How awesome is it that he is the guy from Friday Night Lights who's gone on to the major career? Like, he's the one that, like, he's getting major awards attention. He's got, like, his wife, Kirsten Dunst, is in the film as well, and also up for an Oscar. How cute is that? But just, like, think about that, like, just the incredibly rich cast that Friday Night Lights had, and Jesse Plemons is the one who's gone on to, like dominate the media. I find that very encouraging. So, like, even if he doesn't win the Oscar, like, things are looking good for Jesse.
Absolutely.
I think he's going to be just fine. But I think Cody Schmidt Mcphee is, like, he really, like, again, it's like, you know from the beginning of Power of the Dog who Benedict Cumberbatch's character is, and you go on a journey where you get more context and you see that from different angles. Whereas Cody Schmidt Mcphee is a total enigma. Like, his character Peter, he's like, you watch that film and you think you know who he is, but he's always 2 steps ahead of anybody watching it and everybody else in the film. And I respect that, and it's such a masterful turn that I think it's his to lose at this point.
Does that go for the entire category? Do you like Cody to win this category?
I think he win. Now, J.K. Simmons, he's already gotten his. He got his for Whiplash. And he's very good as Fred Mertz in Being the Ricardos. As William Frawley as Fred Mertz. That's the thing about Being the Ricardos, is it's like 3 different levels of separation between like what kind of performance is happening in any given scene. And he's very good in that. And he's sort of curmudgeonly and cuts through any sappy tendencies that might have gotten through. But it's also like, he's already got an Oscar for Whiplash, and I genuinely think that Cody Schmidt Mcphee as Peter in Power of the Dog, I think this one's going to go to him.
All right. Well, we have to fit in another break, but our conversation with Jason Shawhan will continue just after this.